From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.
And that was, of course, Walter Cronkite on Friday, November 22nd, 1963, announcing the death of President John F. Kennedy. President Kennedy was shot while riding in an open motorcade through through Dealey Plaza in downtown Dallas. Thursday marks the 55th anniversary of the assassination. Larry Sabato joins me now from Charlottesville. He's a director of the University of Virginia Center for Politics and, of course, author of The Kennedy Half Century, The Presidency, Assassination, and Lasting Legacy of John F. Kennedy. So, Larry, after all these years, some Americans view Kennedy's death as really an end of an era, when others view it as a beginning. How do you see it?
Well, it was certainly the end of a presidency and a horribly tragic end to the presidency. There are a diminishing number of us who remember Walter Cronkite live on November 22nd, 1963, and you could feel the shock waves everywhere. People who were alive then still remember that. But, Rena, I think John F. Kennedy's legacy has lasted longer than most presidents. I see that even in the classroom with young people who were born decades after Kennedy's presidency. The reasons are obvious. He was a powerful speaker. He lived during challenging times, and he did leave a legacy, not just of policy, but also of style, reminding everyone that words matter. Words matter. If only somebody in the White House would listen to that.
You know, you mentioned Words Matter. We know the JFK Library Foundation has actually launched a project called Words Count. That's their words. It involves using the words of John F. Kennedy with a new Twitter handle to tweet out his quotes. Do you think this is sort of a subtle swipe at President Trump?
Well, I don't know whether it's a swipe at him. It might be, because the average sentence by John F. Kennedy, uttered publicly at least, was considerably more polished than those that President Trump tweets out. But look, it's a good thing they're doing that, because you have to adapt to new communications. That's how a lot of my students learn. And, you know, John F. Kennedy's inaugural address was one of the 2 or 3 best in American history, and it was very short. At least it's short to me. But you'd be surprised how many students yawn. It's long to them. So a tweet actually helps. Frequent tweets remind people of the lessons we learned in the early 1960s, lessons we can apply to today.
Last year, there were thousands of secret documents, Larry. We had you on talking about this, surrounding the investigation into JFK's assassination. Those documents were made public, but President Trump chose to delay a few of these files until 2021. What did we really learn from the documents that were released, and what do you expect that we might find in the years to come following the release in 2021?
Not a day has passed since that release that my team and I haven't spent time reviewing additional documents. Remember, there are millions of pages total and hundreds of thousands of important pages. We've learned key additional details. We've learned about other suggestions of plots and other information even about Lee Harvey Oswald. All of this is interesting. It's helping us to paint a better picture, a more vivid picture of what happened that day, both before, after, and during the day. But I've got to tell you, I'm very disappointed. The documents that were released are a mess, Rena. They're a mess. There is no index. There are all kinds of duplications. There are still loads of redactions, and some of the best documents have not been released, and one wonders whether they will ever be. Someone predicted to me that I'd have to live to 2063, 100 years after the assassination, to see the really important ones. I hope not, but I kind of suspect he was right.
Larry, you know, it's interesting you mentioned that, like it will be, 100 years later. You've really researched this. You've been in the weeds. What's the one thing that you want to be unveiled about JFK and his assassination that you think could be really revealing?
here's something I think that will surprise you. It's not about the assassination. I think we know pretty much who did it. We may not know who encouraged Lee Harvey Oswald, if in fact there was anybody who did that. I'm more interested in how the government responded and how so many of our government agencies immediately and even up to the current day are still trying to hide the fact that they missed key elements of Lee Harvey Oswald's past and his violent tendencies. This was an assassination that could have been prevented, and there's been a cover-up of that since November 22nd, 1963.
It's so fascinating. It did surprise me. I did not expect you to say that, Larry. Thank you so much, Larry Sabato, for joining us with Insight 55 years after the assassination of JFK.
Thank you, Rena.
You bet.